Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our live Q&A. I am so excited today to be welcoming Malena DeMartini and Patricia McConnell, who literally wrote the books on separation anxiety. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you two doing?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And it's such an honor to actually be able to talk to you, but with Tricia McConnell in the room. That's like life dreams right there. So thank you for having me.
Oh, listen, this is great. Thank you, Erica, for doing this. And Malena, I am so happy to be talking to you. I've read your book. I admire so much about it. So this is a very difficult behavioral issue, but it's solvable. And I love that we're taking the time to talk about it.
Me
so
too.
we can have fun, even though it's a tricky issue.
If you're joining live, we want to know where you're joining from. This is a cooperative conversation. So we really want audience participation. If you have a question about separation anxiety, about dog behavior, we're going to try and answer it live today. So go ahead and leave us a comment. Feel free to type it up. Let us know where you're joining from. But I also want to add some incentive because we do positive reinforcement, right? So if you ask a question here on our live stream, you will be entered to be one of our 2 winners for a free audiobook. And we are actually giving away a copy of Malena's book, Separation Anxiety in Dogs, which became an audiobook about 1.5 years ago, I think. And it's been so great. I actually had I don't take separation anxiety clients very often. I usually refer them out, but I had a complex case that had some separation anxiety. And I was listening to the audiobook on my way in the car, driving to my first session, being like, how do we treat this again? Like during that initial consultation. And it's just such an amazing resource. So if you're joining live, please ask questions. We really want audience participation. And then the other thing I want to know from the audience is, have you read the book? Do you own it? Do you own the ebook? Have you listened to the audiobook? For both of these amazing resources. So let us know in the comments if you have read or if you are wanting to read or learn more or you're early on in your journey. Either of these incredible books, we're going to be talking about this. But while our audience members are kind of rolling in, I do want to take a second to talk about a really incredible book. And I want to give Malena a little bit of an opportunity to talk about this too. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of a plug here.
Thank you.
For Patricia McConnell's novel, A Way to Meet, which is one of the other books. I've got stacks of books all over the place, but I love having my favorite authors and my favorite books right within arm's reach. So Malena, I heard that you recently read this book, and we have a very great endorsement from Zazie Todd, who has a podcast and interviews authors regularly. But Malena, what do you think? 5 stars, 1 star? What do you think?
Oh, is there more than 5 stars available? I mean, we can't just limit ourselves to 5. The book was so incredible, and it was a journey that was especially enjoyable for someone that loves dogs and understands behavior. But it was beautifully written with some plot twists in there that surprised me. And I cannot say enough about it. Patricia, it was just spectacular. And I read through and I couldn't put it down. It was one of those kinds of books where, you're like, I have to go to bed now, but just one more chapter, just one more,
Thank you. Thank you, Erica. I did not know you were going to put that up there. And thank you, Malena. I am working on book 2 in what hope is a trilogy with Maddie McGowan. But anyway, thank you. That's music to my ears. Thank you.
We have some people who are tuning in who said they owned both separation anxiety books and A Way to Me. And it was a great, great read. Love it. So everybody go get your hands on these copies of the books. As I'm going to be mentioning, they are all available at dogwise.com. And if you stick to the end, we're going to give you a coupon code to save 20% on all of these amazing books.
And it just occurred to me, I am now working on Come By, which is the next novel in the series. If you haven't read it, Maddie McGowan is the protagonist, and she's an applied animal behaviorist. Who knew where that came from? One of her clients for Come By has got to be a separation anxiety case, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Here we are.
Absolutely. I like where you're headed. See, we're just brainstorming. This is actually a writing workshop. You guys didn't even know. We've got some people joining in from Indiana, has read Patricia's book and shared it with our clients. That's actually something I really wanted to highlight, is that I'll Be Home Soon is such a teeny tiny little booklet. It's an easy read. It's so wonderful to be able to give to clients. So I'm happy to see that this has been a great resource for people. We've got Ben joining from the sweltering swamps of Southeast Louisiana, got both books and just started reading each. And Sally's joining from Madison, Wisconsin, your neck of the woods, Tricia, and has read books as well. And looks like we've got Oklahoma and Canada as well. Welcome to our international audience. We have, this is a wonderful question. I'm so excited about this question to start us off before we even get into anything that I had prepared to talk about today. Wonderful question. In what situation should we start with one book over the other? What are the useful cases in there? So that's a really great question about these two books, and they are different and they are kind of intended for different audiences. So my recommendation as someone who's read both books is, like I said, this booklet is such a good quick start, easy guide. And this is a really very in-depth book that is really geared a little bit more towards professionals, towards canine professionals. And there's also some really good treatment protocols in here for guardians of separation anxiety dogs. But maybe let's start by talking a little bit about, like, how did these books come to be? And Malena, I know you mentioned that this book actually was pretty instrumental in your career. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
It sure was. So 25 years ago, I got my first separation anxiety case, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm far too green of a trainer to work with this. But I remember it so specifically. The woman called me and said, her dog Guinness had separation anxiety, and I said, well, I'm really green and I'd like to refer you. And she started crying on the other end of the phone. And she said, you're the seventh person that has told me that they won't work with separation anxiety. I just don't know if I can keep calling people. And it just pulled at my heartstrings. And so I said, in all transparency, this is not a behavior that I have a ton of experience with. And but I'm happy to at least get you started, and we can call in, backups and reinforcements if needed. And so, boy, did I follow Patricia McConnell's book to the letter with that first case of mine. I remember we had a sort of a room, confinement sort of room to the side where there was a baby gate, and we would tell Guinness, it's time to go to the pub. And Guinness would go to his little space, and the case was incredibly successful, and I learned so much. And that was sort of my first introduction to, I feel like these cases are workable, manageable, and that the prognosis is excellent. So I'm so grateful to you, Tricia, for such an amazing work.
Well, first, thank you. That's very, very kind of you. And I'm going to bounce in a minute right back at you about your fabulous book. But I have to say, I reread the booklet, not surprisingly, right? Getting ready for this. And it's 26 years. I was shocked. It's like, I wrote this in 2000. It's 26 years old. And there's nothing in there that I'm like, oh, this is horrible. But I would certainly rewrite the treatment section a little bit just to be more clear on a couple of things. There's no section on the importance of observation, which Malena, your book does such a great job with. So it is it's a small booklet, as Erica said. I originally designed it for seminars. I'd give seminars, and I would hand out to clients that I had, because I felt a lot the way you did. I was like, holy moly, this is, really rough. And what do I do here? And so it's not a booklet. It's not enough to know exactly how to treat, in my opinion, separation anxiety. It's a good way of defining what is and is not separation anxiety. really fond of the section on prevention. The treatment section, I think, is in general, I would tweak it, but in general, gets people know sort of what you need to do and what not to do. But Malena, your book it's excellent, and it is a deep dive. I love that you're a data analyst. It is a deep dive. So it's perfect for trainers. I think it's great for the kind of guardians who are like, I mean, we all know people who are just really into it, right? You know, guardians who are like, I want to do a deep dive myself. I want to learn everything behind this. It's an excellent book. And I'm just thrilled that Malena has been part of efforts in the last 26 years to understand this issue better and to find the best ways to treat it, because it is treatable, but it's not easy.
Absolutely. I will say that something for me that I like to tell people, I'm really big into like what I call, just let's successively approximate reading, right? And I'm like, here, you can read this. And I get these like little tiny books that I'm like, we're just going to get bigger and bigger. So I have a personal mission to help people read more. And I think if I were to hand this book to a client and say, here, this is going to solve all your problems, first of all, they need the professional guidance, I think. I think this is, again, a wonderful resource, but the certified separation anxiety trainers, the CSATs that Malena, you have worked with and trained over the years, have been very instrumental. And this book is like, it's just so approachable. It's like, oh, I can read this. I can flip through and see this. I mean, what is it? It's like 40 pages, maybe 35. You could read this in an afternoon. And obviously it's going to take longer to apply that, but having a good starting point. And again, what you said of like defining what separation anxiety is and isn't, that's a very common misunderstanding, which actually we shared this quote on our social media page recently from your book, Tricia. Separation anxiety is similar to a panic attack in humans. And if you've ever had one, you'll be overwhelmed with sympathy for a dog with a severe case. And do you want to speak to that a little bit, either of you?
Yes, but I'm going to toss it to Malena because I think you do such a good job in your book. I mean, the main point is made in my booklet, right? But getting people to really understand, one, they're not mad at you. Two, right? There's nothing for you to feel guilty about. We can talk about that more because Malena and I are totally on the same page there. People tend to feel guilty. It's not your fault. You didn't do it. But the idea that dogs are just being bad or, troublesome. Now, obviously,
not
right. So let me toss it to Malena because I think you do such a good job of saying this is like a phobia, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that you chose that word in particular, because one thing that I think is so important when working with these cases as a guardian is to recognize that level of experience and potential terror that the dog is going through, not just because it'll help inform your treatment protocol, but also because, quite frankly, these are complex behaviors that need a lot of time, patience, care. And if we don't have that empathy going in for the animal, then it's a lot harder to sort of stay the course throughout the time that we're working. I always tell people, by definition, a phobia is very, very irrational to the individual that is not experiencing it, but very real to the individual who is, which is the dog in this case, right? And so it's really typical, normal, appropriate for us to feel as guardians that, well, but I always come back. I mean, this is so silly. Why is my dog being so ridiculous, et cetera, right? But when we understand that level, as you say in this quote, that being similar to a panic attack in humans, then we can really open up our hearts and realize, no, this dog truly needs help, truly needs help.
Right.
I really like what you said about empathy. And I had actually collected from your book several myths that are very pervasive about separation anxiety. And one of them is that it's the owner's fault, or that, the owner did something wrong or created this by spoiling the dog. And even I think that is something that we do see a little bit on social media, or maybe a lot on social media, depending on what your algorithm looks like, where the idea of the owner made it happen, or they caused it in some way. And that's such an unfair thing to put on the guardian of these dogs, who I'm sure, as you've seen in your practice, Malena, care deeply for their experience of their dogs and are really looking for help, and not to be blamed or, have that guilt on them.
Honestly, the majority of clients that I speak to, which are a lot, we get a lot of inquiries, and we provide a free call to help guide people. The majority are already feeling this tremendous amount of guilt, whether they feel they caused it, whether they feel they've exacerbated, or whether they just feel like they don't know what to do. The guilt is overwhelming, and it doesn't serve any purpose in helping the treatment plan move forward. This is, as are many behavior issues, this is certainly a behavior issue that deserves kindness, compassion, and validation for all of the feelings that these individual guardians are experiencing. Boy, judgment and owner blaming does not have a place at all with this behavior issue, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, so true. And if I could just, that whole issue of owner blaming also makes me think of owner guardian blaming dog, right?
Right.
And the most common thing I heard is that when I came home and the couch was shredded, or, this was pee and poop all over the house, is they look so guilty. I know that, I know they did wrong. They look so guilty. And even with really great research, you got, everybody listening probably knows about the research of Horowitz and Julie Hecht did research on creating a situation in which dogs look guilty no matter what had happened, or no matter what the dogs had done. And the owners were like, oh, they're so guilty. And no, they weren't. They were appeasing, right? They were going belly up. They were cringing, right? They were giving all kinds of appeasement signals because they knew their owner was going to be mad to them in that circumstance. And so fighting that, they know better. And I know they do because they look guilty. That takes no small amount of time. It really does. It's so hardwired into people that it just took a lot of trying to help them through it, because they just resisted. It's like, no, I know he is. It's like, no, you don't.
I actually highlighted a quote from Malena's book. It's on page 19. And the part of it that I highlighted when I was reading the ebook is calculated reasoning is not in a dog's repertoire. The dog is not revenge seeking. They're not being naughty. And I love it. I mean, it's exactly what you just said, but to have it in writing sometimes really helps me to, to see it and have it highlighted in several places in my real book and my audiobook. And then I clip it in the audiobook and highlight it in my ebook. But I just want to read this passage. It says, the guilty look that some dogs display is commonly used as a case argument for the naughty dog syndrome. However, it has been shown in many studies that these guilt-appearing behaviors are born of something completely different. And the appearance of guilt is typically associated with a fear response to the owner's reaction.
Right.
It's exactly what you just said. I just like having it in print with my little.
Yeah. And here's another talk with me and Malena, because I would love to have a talk about whether calculated reasoning is something dogs can ever do. I don't think it happens in this case, but I think it's a really fun topic. The dog comes to the door barking as if there's somebody there to get the dog off the couch. Anyway, but that's a whole other topic. But it's so important. I'm so glad. I mean, that segment of your book, Malena, is so clear. And I tried to do the same thing. It's like, it's not your fault. So let's move on, you guys. Take a breath. and ride the ride with us, because it's a ride, right?
Indeed.
Owners, guardians have to buy in, because it's a trip. It's a trip getting it done.
And speaking of empathy, having empathy for dog guardians who might only know about dog behavior based on what they see on social media. And my gosh, how many hundreds of videos do I see on a daily basis of videos of I came home and my dog got into the trash and look, he looks so guilty, and they're following him around with the camera. I had the opportunity to talk to Turid Rugas, who wrote on calming signals on talking terms with dogs, and how dogs do appeasement signals just from having a camera in their face. And now we've got our phones 24/7, where, right in their faces. And there's so much going on. But then if the guardian is only getting their information from social media or friends and not professional behaviorists, not professional trainers, we do need to have some empathy, because I want to say, look, it's right here in the book. I highlighted it. I can show you the studies. I can show you the research. And that can be really alienating. That can be something that just puts people on their back foot of like, well, don't quote research at me. I know what I know. And sometimes we need to have some empathy to be able to really come around and say, where can I meet you where you're at? And trying to alleviate the guilt on both sides. So I think that that's really important. And actually, so this may or may not answer the question that we just got from Heather. How do you convince a guardian that the dog is not being vindictive or guilty without seeming to contradict them? So Malena, what are some strategies or scripts that you use in your practice when you don't want to be confrontational with a guardian, but you do want to maybe challenge their beliefs a little bit?
I love this question. And one of the things that I think is so important is for us to first recognize our own sort of trigger or bias, like, well, duh, that initial feeling, of course your dog's not guilty or vindictive. But in one way to sort of validate the individual's experience is to say, tell me more about that. Tell me more about what you're seeing. And then when they tell you a little bit, we can say, how did you come to see it that way? Do you want to hear a little bit about what the dog behavior that your dog is displaying is telling you? And so inviting them into the conversation rather than pounding them with, well, the research indicates that that dogs are showing signs of appeasement based on your behavior, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So there's a gentler way to approach the behavior. Tell me more about that. How did you come to see it that way? And would you like to discuss some alternatives for what you're seeing?
I really like that, especially because we as trainers don't want to punish the behavior of our clients asking us questions or trusting us as a valuable resource. So I really love that answer. We have a couple of other questions that I don't want to skip over. And it looks like we had an early question. Dog had separation anxiety as a puppy. We worked through it, and he has been fine home alone up to 6 hours for 4 years now. I recently went on my first 7-day trip and realized that he's regressed now that I'm home. I'm not sure where to start up with training again, as he's fine with pre-departure cues, fine with me going out to the garage. This is a very specific question. Do you want to jump on it, Malena?
Sure. Yay for being fine with pre-departure cues. That's fantastic. And, it's interesting because even in your book, Patricia, I have it highlighted in here where you were talking about when we work through separation anxiety, it's sort of like, it's one of the few behaviors, quite frankly, where when you're done, you're done. However, there are life changes and environmental influences that can cause a regression, as this individual is talking about here. And what I think is really important is to start where your dog is comfortable and start where your dog is able to handle alone time. So if it's going out to the garage plus an addition, a minute staying out there, fantastic. And then you can start to move gradually and incrementally through some additional duration, always remembering that dogs are masters of discrimination. And so predictability is extremely important in their world, right? Anxiety loves information. A colleague of mine, Maya Huff-Owen, used to say that all the time. And so giving them the information through your pre-departure cues or through hearing the garage door open and close or things like that, that's all going to be helpful as you progress towards adding duration to alone time. And I think taking the time to watch your dog, this is the wonderful thing about technology today. We have Zoom, we have phone cameras, we have, really cheap and accessible video cameras, in-home video cameras that can allow you to watch your dog and start to read their body language to determine at what point in time or in what scenario environmentally are they starting to show signs of a little bit of discomfort. And then we're always remaining at a point that is beneath those signs of discomfort. So it's a really great question. And I feel like you've got such a wonderful foundation. And now it's just your dog sort of fell off the bike. Now he's going to learn to ride his bike a little bit again with some trust practice and ensuring his safety.
The same user who gave us that question said, "Thank you so much, Malena. Maya was actually my CSAT when he was a puppy." I adore Maya. She is just an incredible human. But I love that. I actually was trying to find a pen to scribble that down about, what did you say?
Anxiety loves information.
Anxiety loves information.
That is a great line. Thank you for that. I love it too. I will always remember it also. And I just want to jump up and down and cheer about the fact that we have so much technology now. The first thing I was thinking of when you read that question about the dog who regressed is like, well, I would want a camera on the dog and, what happens when, and that got me just feeling like, boy, have things changed, when I was seeing clients, I mean, you could ask them to video, right? But it was much more awkward. It was much harder. Some could, some couldn't. And I would literally, Malena, and I think I called you Malena. I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's so fun. It's fine.
I'll probably call you George, later because,
I'll listen to
that. But I literally, you're going to die laughing. I literally used to park like 2 blocks away, have the owner leave, and then I would literally crawl, and I'm not making that up. I would crawl around the back of the house, peer over a window, waiting to be arrested by the neighborhood watch group to see if I could see what the dog was doing. I'm serious. I mean, that was not an uncommon behavior. So, somebody once said to me, yeah, you too can get a PhD and either sneak around poking in people's windows or get on your hands and knees and sniff for cat urine.
Absolutely.
Yes, you can. Anyway, so the technology we have now is so great to help cure this. And it allows people, and I love this in your book, and I wish it was in my booklet, the part about guardians need to learn to read canine body language is really, really crucial. And that focus, I've seen it from you, I've seen it from Julie Naismith. It's just so important. And it must be a big part of what you do with your clients now. Oh, it was somewhat of a part, but again, the observations were not as, anyway, so I would love to hear more from you about that, Malena.
Well, it's so interesting that you used to peer through windows because when I started, I was just adamant that I needed video, and I invested in, this is dating both you and I, Patricia. I invested in several of those 8mm tape cameras.
Oh, yeah.
For every client that I had, I brought a camera, and then at the end of the week, I would collect the videos. But what's so interesting when you fast forward to today, what I was doing was collecting video and watching it retroactively. Like, oh, the dog went too far past his panic point in this video. Okay, now we'll have to adjust. But now we can watch the dog in real time live, and we can pivot dynamically in the moment. The moment, as opposed to, oh, I looked at this video and saw that, he was freaking out for 10 extra minutes that I should have been back. Well, that's a long time. And to be able to go, oh, my dog is starting to look a little uncomfortable, I'm going to make sure that we end this absence at this point in time, so really huge. And I'm so grateful for technology and the ability to use those videos to also teach the guardian about their own dog's body language and behavior, right? So we can review the video together, and I can teach subtle signs like your dog, not all dogs, but your particular dog shows the whites of his eyes when he starts to get a little bit concerned about the absence, or your dog paces around in a big circle before he starts to come to the door and scratch, or your dog, you can see his belly moving as he's starting to whine, even though you can't hear it, right? You can see the underbelly moving in a different way as he's taking in those breaths. And getting that kind of body language education and helping guardians see that those small bits of behavior that escalate and lead to behavior that we don't want to see, so that we can stop the absence before it gets to a point that the dog is experiencing, tremendous panic and distress. So huge. Body language reading is everything. And I will tell you, because it's I think it's a perfect pivot on this. One of the things that I'm commonly talked to about is, well, but most dog guardians don't know how to read their dog's body language. And guess what? We are brilliant as trainers and behavior consultants at shaping our clients to write their notes in such a way that, maybe in the beginning they wrote, he looks worried. And then we can say, tell me what your dog was doing with what body parts and in what direction. And it's your job to tell me all those details so that I can then interpret and determine, from that point, because my dog looks worried, doesn't give me the information that I need.
Right.
So shaping those clients is really, really huge.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got a couple comments. I'm going to go a little out of order, but Sandra Marie said, that's what I love about guiding separation anxiety dog parents, how they learn about observing their dog's body language. Such an important part of their journey. The notes are everything. And I do want to take a moment to plug several books that are currently available at dogwise.com at huge discounts that are about learning more about dog body language. Barbara Handelman's book, Canine Behavior, a Photo Illustrated Handbook, is one of my favorites. This book by Roger Abrantes, Dog Language, an Encyclopedia of Canine Behavior. It's a little bit smaller, but it's got a lot of great information in there. It's only $12 right now. And then Brenda Aloff's book, Canine Body Language, a Photographic Guide, is a classic that so many people have read and have. And it's a huge, giant, thick book that you can put on your shelf. But again, it's $30 off right now. So these are resources that I like to get into people's hands if they are curious about learning, or send them to. That's one of the things I love so much about DogWise, is being able to send people to our website and say, hey, go and get this book. There's lots of pictures. You're going to learn something. And then, of course, I really love On Talking Terms with Dogs, Calming Signals, which is, like we said, just shaping reading. Just look a little bit to get people these resources in their hands, because I think that what Sandra Marie said, that it's such an important part of their journey. I think it's an important part of the journey of every dog guardian. every person who works with dogs or lives with dogs to learn more about canine body language. I believe that we owe that to our canine companions.
Erica, you might be amused to know that I probably mentioned DogWise. I mean, I'm not saying clients anymore, right? But I probably mention it, I don't know, at least 5, 7, 8, 9 times a week. And often to people who don't know it. And so my description is, oh, you can find it at DogWise. It's like the Amazon of dog books, except all the people there are nice, kind, good people rather than fill in the blanks.
Right?
And that is exactly what I say over and over and over again. It's like the Amazon of dog books, except.
One of the things I've always loved about DogWise way before I started working for DogWise is that I felt comfortable as someone seeing clients as a professional dog trainer, sending people to DogWise over Amazon, not just because of ethics and everything else and supporting small business, but because I knew there was someone at DogWise that was vetting those books, someone who was reading those books and saying, is this a good resource? Is it scientifically sound? Is it something that our community could benefit from? And I have the honor now to be the person that reads those books. And it's a wonderful part of my job, but being able to trust that there's a trusted source of information. It's not, I mean, you can get any book on Amazon, and an ongoing conversation that I'm having more and more is how many AI written, just auto-generated books are flooding the market and the information's not accurate or it's not trustworthy. Or there are authors that I certainly do not promote their methods. Those books are on Amazon and they might have a higher rating. They might be showing up higher on people's search feed because more people are buying them because the education's not quite there. And again, that to me is just the beauty and wonder that is this company, that there are so many great resources that you can trust. Sending someone to dogwise.com, you're going to find really great books that people have read there. Ben is tuning in saying almost half my library is DogWise books now, and I have a sizable library.
I love it, Ben.
Janice said, love all 3 of those body language books. Malena, do you have a favorite dog body language book or resource?
Funny, yes. And I know I see it actually behind you is Lily Chin's book.
Yes.
Yes. Doggy Language by Lily Chin. I adore this book.
It's so accessible and so perfectly aligned, with, of course, her beautiful artwork, with all of the kinds of body language and behavior that we really want to be taking note of. I love it. I love it.
So great. So wonderful.
Yeah.
And, I think her illustrations are just incredible. I love her work so much. I think the only reason I didn't put this as my recommended list is because it's not currently on sale. We don't discount this book very often because it only costs $12 and it's such an easy resource. I love telling people about this book and saying, like, this is such a good book for kids of all ages, people of all ages, including kids, because it does have illustrations. It makes it really approachable, but it's just packed with really spectacular information. So thank you for mentioning that. Trisha, do you have a favorite resource for canine body language?
Well, you just picked one of them up. You absolutely did. And and I'm going to forget it again. Can I find it quick in my library? Erica, you and I talked about, Dogs in Translation.
Dogs in Translation.
Dogs in Translation. Put out of my library. It's the opposite of Lily Chin in that it is not small. It is huge. It's expensive. It's an amazing piece of work. It's just a phenomenal piece of work. Dogs in Translation. Check it out. If you're a serious trainer or just a committed dog guardian, do you have it? I think
I have it? I was going to say, I don't think I have it, but it's in my big, giant.
It's big. Yeah. And it's
huge. It's full of work. It's so amazing things. I love this book. It's worth every penny. I tell people, like, if you really want to do like hardcore body language stuff, I love this book. But like you said, the exact opposite of Lily Chin, of like,
it is
hard, heavy, expensive, deep dive.
And I think for people learning, I think frankly, that is the last book I would suggest to them if they're just getting into canine behavior, because there are pictures in there that they describe it. I'm like, I don't see it. No, I see it. What's wrong with me? There's something wrong with it.
I'm gonna show you this one picture because I love this example so much. You can actually see that the authors and the photographers worked on putting like the lines through the body.
Yes,
so
isn't that great?
The shift in weight of these dogs, and something that they wrote about they also have a workbook, but something they wrote about at the very beginning of the book is the reason they wanted to rely on split-second changes in photography as opposed to videography is just because there's so much going on, and they really wanted to highlight the differences that's happening just picture to picture. I loved when we got this book in. I actually did get to interview the authors a couple of years ago.
Did you really?
I did, and I am so frustrated with Facebook Live. Deleted every interview I did for the first 2.5 years I was in.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
And they're gone. So it's actually been great because I've been reaching out to authors being like, I know we already talked, but do you want to talk again? Because now it's streaming on multiple services and YouTube is saving everything. So anyone who's not able to join live, that's okay because you can watch the replay. But like, look at this incredible picture of this dog, these three pictures, and it's talking about the perspective, right? If you're right up in the dog's face, if you're way overhead, or if you're at eye level, it looks totally different. So how does it look to the dogs that are approaching, that are having, it's just, this book is great. But
it's brilliant. Yeah.
Not a good just ease in.
Not a good intro.
This is for the pros. If you're looking to spend all your money, this is where you should spend it. Really, really good question and good resources. Ben, it looks like, has a question. Let's see. When someone approaches me and says, I have a dog with anxiety problems when I leave the house, what do you suggest is the first thing I say to them? I'm going to let Malena answer this one first.
Ooh, choosing the one first thing to say. I think that probably my recommendation would be to gather more information. In other words, can you tell me a little bit about what you mean by anxiety problems? What kind of behavior is your dog displaying? Have you already watched them on video so that you know, and how do you recognize that it is anxiety? Sort of getting to the root of that. I think that's probably the place to start. Because as Patricia McConnell beautifully goes through in her book, there are many reasons that we come home and, for instance, see a chewed up, couch pillow, or there are many reasons why we might come home and have a note on our door from the neighbors saying your dog was barking all afternoon, those many reasons, only one of them might be separation anxiety, right? There's many reasons that dogs are chewing on things at home or barking during the day. And it is very common now to assume that a dog that is displaying some sort of behavior when alone is experiencing anxiety, and that may or may not be the case. And I tell people, let's find out really what is happening so that hopefully we can get you on the right path based on the individual behavior that the dog is displaying and what they're experiencing. I loved, and I highlighted and bookmarked in here, Tricia, about when you talked about what it isn't. And I just think it's so important to know what is not separation anxiety, and including, the frustration and intolerance that you talked about. All of that is really, really important for people to understand. So I'd say that's probably the place to start, because someone saying, I have a dog with anxiety problems when I leave the house could be multiple things.
Really good answer. Do you want to jump in there, Tricia?
Yeah, it's just adding on. I think I love that perspective that I get so strongly of just listening, So I would probably say something. Now, I assume Ben is a trainer, I'm guessing. So I would probably, if they just came up and said, I have a dog with separation anxiety, what should I do? What's the first thing I would say? I would probably say something like, well, let's talk about what you're looking for. What do you need? Tell me tell me what's going on, right? Details, right? Observations, not assumptions. Give me a summary of sort of what's going on, but then, tell me sort of where you're at, how can I best serve you right now? Because sometimes people really need a consult, right? And you just have to say, well, I'd love to see you. Here's how you book an appointment. And other times they're in the market, right? Or always at the airport.
Yes.
Right. Never tell anybody you're a canine professional at the airport. You are doomed. Absolutely doomed. So, sometimes they just want you to sympathize, or, sometimes I would first want to know, what can I do for you? What do you need from me right now? Is it help how to diagnose it, or, decide what's going on? Or is it help trying to, if it's true, is it help trying to treat it? What can I do for you right now? And sometimes it's just to listen. And, I'm happy to do that for 20 plus minutes for free. So I think the whole point that's coming out a lot in this discussion that I just think is so valuable is the import of listening. It's just so, I love that it's being emphasized. It's like, tell me, let's have a conversation. Tell me, rather than the research says, that kind of idea. I value that so much. And I think it's not, I don't see it, it's not something that's trained necessarily. I'm going to the big, huge Canis conference in Chicago.
I'll meet you there then.
Yes.
Me too.
We're going to be there. We're all, it's fantastic, fabulous, right? But one thing I'll bring up, and maybe it's already there already, is some workshops on communicating. On communicating with clients, on what mirroring is, for example. I mean, it's one of the simplest things in the world that I read 8 million years ago of if you're trying to sort of connect with somebody. I would often have, and I'm sure this is still true, I would see a couple, and one member of the couple was all in on getting advice from me and what do you suggest is going on. And very often the other member wasn't. You could guess that there was a gender-related issue sometimes. And nobody would guess which way it would go, of course. But so I just read this in like Psych 101. And so I took the posture of the person who I was speaking to, and I would talk slower and perhaps lower my voice the tiniest bit, thinking I was like an idiot, thinking really foolish, and they're going to think I'm, like teasing them or laughing at them or making fun of them. And it worked. It was like, oh my God, that's amazing. But knowing how to communicate with clients, when you spend so much of your energy, learn to read dog, and speak dog, and know how to influence behavior in a really positive way, it doesn't always translate into working with people. And I think with separation anxiety cases, especially, because it is hard and it's time consuming. And I think what I see now is people making a really big point, people like Malena making a really big point of, I am here for you. This is a journey we're going on together, and you can count on me. I am here for you. And I think being able to be that person and say it in ways that people really get, I think is critical to having successful outcomes.
Absolutely. My first inclination is always to reach for a book. So The Human Half of Dog Training.
Yes.
We put this as one of our audiobook projects last year, and I loved listening to the audiobook when I was doing the production supervising and editing that audiobook and working with a really wonderful, actually, Trisha, it's the same narrator that we've used, Deb, who's amazing. She's done a couple of books for you and we've worked together. She did a really wonderful job. But this book, I really wish I had read this book a lot sooner in my career. I didn't even know it was a thing, but it's excellent. There are more resources out there now, but there just is not enough emphasis, I think, on being able to communicate with the humans. So The Human Half of Dog Training, highly recommend this book.
Good idea.
I also want to give a little bit of a quick plug to there are several people in our field that are intentionally moving towards talking about, this communication component. I just finished an IAABC course called The Tales of Understanding, the Art of Communication with Our Human Clients. It
Ooh.
was fantastic, fantastic.
Ooh.
And the folks that presented the course are incredible, just truly incredible. Carm Ofterhide and Karis, I mean, amazing. And also, Valerie Bogey is doing a lot of work right now on, communication and this entire sort of, particularly when you're faced with difficult conversations and difficult topics, because sometimes they do come up. I mean, with respect to separation anxiety, there are going to be days that the client is frustrated, emotionally depleted, just in need of seeing their dog do great and make some progress. And that just happens to be the day that the dog doesn't do as well as hoped. And those are conversations that we need to be skilled at having, both from an empathetic perspective as well as from a boundary perspective, right? We're not their therapist, but we certainly can support them, guide them, help them, and nurture the emotions that are there for their dog.
I cannot say enough good things about Valerie Bogey. She is a resource unto herself. She and I are having a little bit of a conversation of could she write a book for Dogwise and help bring that information to a wider audience. And so fingers crossed that we get Valerie Bogey to become one of our Dogwise authors soon.
Wait.
Wonderful. I did want to say really quick too, I had put this together to talk about because, Malena, this is actually your second edition of Separation Anxiety in Dogs. You had written a book prior to this. And in the introduction, you talk about why a new book. And again, I highlighted a couple of passages here because this first one says, we now have a legion, 100 plus strong at the time of writing this publication, of CSATs, separation anxiety trainers, around the world in many continents and time zones. And when Ben was asking, what do you say to someone who comes up to you and says, I have a dog with separation anxiety? What's the first thing that you say? Again, I'm like, here's a book, here's a resource, do this, talk to this person. And what I would think is find a certified separation anxiety trainer. Now, that was not a thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Trisha, when you wrote your book, there was not a global network of CSATs that you could have Zoom calls with. And the trainer does not need to be peeking into your back window. They actually just need to be on a Zoom call. And then also, Trisha, you mentioned that Malena is a lover of data and data collection. And that is such an important part of separation anxiety training. Can you talk a little bit about both the advent of the CSAT program, Malena, and also your collection of data and how it may be, now there is someone to be able to refer someone to. You said at the very beginning, you were the 7th or 8th trainer that someone had called. There just weren't resources available, but now there's actually a global network of individuals that are trained specifically in separation anxiety training.
Yeah, I love this question because it's so, when I first started, and certainly Patricia, when you were, practicing with in-person clients, we handled every sort of behavior from puppies to human aggression to separation anxiety to dog challenges, and you name it. And one of the things that I think is really beautiful that has happened is that while most of us have a very broad educational background about behaviors and all sorts of behaviors, there's a sort of more specified line where folks can really specialize in a behavior like separation anxiety, which is an incredibly complex process to work with and to guide the client through. So I started not really with the intention of building a quote legion, but I started the certified separation anxiety program in 2014. And my goal was just because I had so many clients, I didn't know what to do. And my goal was just to help, sort of almost like from an apprenticeship type of scenario, right? I need some help. I don't know where to refer these folks. And so I started teaching the program, and there was such tremendous interest that it just kept going. And now we're 11 years strong, and it's no longer 100 plus strong. It's about just under 300 at last count. Yeah. And so, one of the things that has been an important aspect, and I feel of this program, and I feel that it has started to begin to bleed into other types of behavior, is the data tracking. I happen to have been, my background pre-dog profession was in statistics, in social statistics in particular, and I couldn't help but apply that to my dog training clients and the separation anxiety work. We collect so much data. I mean, obviously, we're very careful about the data that we are collecting and how we're using it, but we collect the data in order to help us. It informs us as to what types of environmental influences and other aspects are going to affect the dog's behavior. Little things that become big things. For instance, the dog is doing well day after day in his separation anxiety protocol, but in our data tracking, we noticed that the dog didn't do so well this day. What is it about that day that was different? And then when you're collecting data over time, where is the pattern emerging? Is it, the days that the dog does great, there happens to be some really excellent enrichment that the dog experienced that day. The days that the dog is showing the trend of not doing as great, what is happening that day? Is there a windy, stormy day that maybe the dog is somewhat noise sensitive and it influences their behavior when alone? All of the little nuances, including the conversation about whether, if a dog is, let's say, taking medication, we can show this data tracking to our veterinarians and do a lot of collaboration about this was pre-medication, this is 6 weeks into medication, this is what we're seeing now, this is some change in body language and behavior. And I think it's just that collection of data is so important. And that's a big aspect of the separation anxiety certification program. And I hope that this industry at large starts getting pretty geeky about collecting data, because it is such a powerful tool to inform us in our protocols.
Absolutely. I wanted to share this myth from the book that you debunk. I was trying to pick a few of the myths to fun things to put on social media, to quick sharing things. And you have over 20 that you debunk. So it was really hard to narrow it down. There was so much great information in that chapter. But this myth that we hear a lot, medications are a last resort. This is a topic I really wanted to talk about. And we actually have a couple of questions coming in from our audience asking. Marianne wants to know, what are your thoughts in using vet-approved medication to help with separation anxiety?
Well, I want to say, first of all, I love what the example that you gave in your book, Tricia. Medications are not intended for dogs that are chewing up couch cushions because they're bored. Medications are not intended for dogs that are barking at the taunting squirrel outside, all of those sorts of things. But for dogs who are truly suffering with this panicked behavior during alone time, I think that medications can play a valuable role. Now, this is more of a conversation to have, obviously, with your veterinarian, to make sure that the medication that you are discussing is the appropriate medication for your dog. And but I do think that it is worth at least keeping your mind open to having that as one of the tools in your toolbox. Medications carry a stigma, and they have forever in the on the human side of behavioral health. And so I understand why some people are sort of like, that's a last resort. But in many cases, if we can help the dog, I mean, the goal is to help the dog to feel safe and comfortable. And if including medications in their treatment plan is going to facilitate that, I think it's an option worth considering.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I also so sympathize with I don't want to use a medication. I mean, I'm like, my doctor is like, and why are you not taking ibuprofen and acetaminophen, right? Because I'm like, well, because of my liver, and I don't want, right? So I'm very sympathetic and understanding of the I'd rather not use medication. But the thing I found that helped with clients, and this is later than 26 years ago, but I stopped practicing quite a while ago, but one of the things that seemed to help is trying to explain to them that your dog's brain isn't normal right now. It's not behaving normally. We're not talking about medication in order to change your dog or to drug your dog into some kind of a different state. We're trying to help your dog get back to a natural state, to a normal state. Your dog's neurophysiology is off, and we need to help your dog's neurophysiology get more normal. So that was one of the most helpful ways that I could find to try and help people. And obviously that's radically generalizing the use of some kinds of medication, but it seemed to be less threatening to some people. That your dog's brain it's not normal to have a panic attack. I mean, the first panic attack I had was in a supermarket looking at a can of beans. I'm serious. I thought I was going to die. I was looking at a can of beans. That's not normal, right? So, and I would tell people that, and they're like, oh, well,
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think that helps. And I'm going to go take some ibuprofen and acetaminophen as soon as we're done, because I just had a talk with myself.
I love it. I love it. I wanted to add to that. One veterinarian that was at one of my seminars came up to me and said this, and I thought it was so perfect. She said, we are so comfortable with using medication when it, or more comfortable anyway, when it comes to pain and physical ailments. But a medical emergency on the physical side is really akin to the behavioral emergency that is being presented when a dog is experiencing that level of panic. And I thought that was really helpful, because you're right. So many people are reticent and I don't want my dog to be dopey and I don't want to change their personality. Well, if the medication changes their personality and makes them dopey, it's either not the right one, or it's not the right dose, or something like that, right? That's not the goal of using medication. So yeah, I love that you say that.
Yeah, the follow-up comment is, per my vet, and again, we are trainers, we are not vets. Please talk to your veterinarian, or if you're lucky enough to work with a veterinary behaviorist, find me one of those. Per my vet, we're using 50 milligrams of trazodone daily entering week 2, and it is helping, along with exercise, desensitizing routines, etc. And I am glad that they mentioned exercise, because another myth that I read about in the book as debunked is that getting more exercise will cure separation anxiety. There's so much information on the internet, and we're not going to have time to get through all of the myths that we saw, or that I mentioned that we've got, but there's so much out there that people think, well, getting another dog will fix separation anxiety, or if I don't punish my dog because he destroyed something, he's not going to know that he did anything wrong. There's so much stuff that is pervasive and is not accurate. The myth that dogs grow out of separation anxiety. I really loved the way that you responded to this myth in your book, Malena. leave your dog with a t-shirt, blanket, or sock that smells like you. That sounds reasonable. And then in the next sentence, you say, wait, the whole house smells like you. You're just there. So I understand how these things get into on social media or kind of in that cultural fog of like, let's solve the problem this way. But then also knowing that dogs are individuals and some of the things you might have heard might not be true. And that actually brings me to a really interesting topic I want to talk about before we sign off. Crates. Crates and separation anxiety with dogs. There is a wonderful content creator, Better Natured Dog Training. Better Natured Training is her handle on Instagram. Alyssa is her name. She just responded today, I have permission to share this, to a comment that someone left on her social media account saying that she's a fake expert because she doesn't recommend just putting a dog into a crate. And Alyssa is a certified separation anxiety trainer. She has wonderful content. If you're interested in learning more about separation anxiety and you don't want to read a whole book and you want to have a couple snippets or a little bit of humor, please go look at her account. I really love the content that she's creating. We've been sharing it a lot on our social media lately. But Malena, Patricia, let's talk about crates for separation anxiety.
Well, yeah. I'm pretty sure we're both on the same page. Absolutely. It is just not what I recommend for so many reasons. One is most of us want our dogs when we're gone to live loose in the house. That's what what my clients wanted. That's what I want. I have crates here and I put the dogs in them sometimes, but mostly I want my dogs to be loose in the house. So that's number one. That's what you're going for. That's what you should be working towards. Two, awful lot of dogs with separation anxiety are so much worse in a crate. And if you're spending all your time trying to get your dog comfortable in a crate, then you're not getting a dog comfortable in the situation the dog is going to be in eventually anyway. I think crates can create, well, I don't know. I was going to say, I'll ask Glenn about this. I was going to say, and I stopped myself, maybe you could even create some anxiety with crates. I don't know. That's a whole other issue, but they're definitely not. And I say this even 26 years ago, I said this is they are not the cure for separation anxiety. I pass it on, Malena, to you.
Thanks. I love that you say that. And about the creates, first of all, we've already established in the research that a lot of dogs that suffer with separation anxiety also suffer with confinement anxiety. And so if you're putting two major triggers together, it's very logical then that the dog would be even much more distressed. I have a CSAT that I was talking to the other day that gave me a really nice example. And one example that I commonly use is if I'm having a panic attack and you put me in a small closet, now my panic attack is confined to a very small space. It doesn't mean my panic attack has somehow gone away. And so, oftentimes we do see that having a dog with separation anxiety in a crate exacerbates the behavior. Now, one thing that I want to just make a nod to, and I know we're tight on time, so I just want to be quick on this one. I understand that guardians think, well, I have to use a crate because my dog is destructive, or I have to use a crate because my dog is urinating and defecating in the house when alone. And I understand that that would be sort of the go-to in order to mitigate the distraction or the mess of the urination and defecation in the home. If you are implementing a really appropriate separation anxiety protocol, your dog is only being exposed to alone time that they are comfortable with. When they are comfortable, they are not urinating, defecating, and destroying. And so we don't have to try and confine or contain those behaviors if we're not exposing them to alone time that is inciting that anxiety. So, and that is like a short snippet of, how a separation anxiety protocol would work. But I encourage you to consider that we can implement a protocol that doesn't cause the dog to become anxious, which means they won't be engaging in destructive behavior.
I love that answer. There was a question earlier in the audience. Someone was asking about crating and their dog showing signs of distress in a crate and asking for some guidance. So I'm hoping that this is going to help give them a little bit of insight on what to do. Jeannie asked this question, joining from Northern California. Usually rescue dogs one at a time. My recent rescue was dumped in the woods. He has extreme anxiety when I leave. I have a 4-dog pack, which has been good for him, but I need help. I currently crate him, try not to show my stress of leaving, but he goes crazy barking even with another dog crated close. That's why I'm here, needing help. And again, really great resources might be worth reaching out to a CSAT. And that myth of just get another dog, it might help. I'm not saying that that's what Jeannie's doing. It sounds like she's rescuing or fostering dogs and has a larger pack, but there's so much information in there and so much that, just get another dog, just put them in the crate. This is not a quick fix solution. This is not a quick and easy thing. It is a complex problem. We've got time, I think, for one more question because it is a really good one. And then I want to close with a few things. Janice asked, how much do dogs not feel safe or not feeling safe weigh into separation anxiety? If they feel safer in other areas of their life, building trust, might that decrease separation anxiety? I also have been communicating more with detail on when I will return, beginning in short departures, such as I'll be right back and leave only for a few minutes and come right back. So I'm not lying to her. I have a feeling that this might be an it depends answer.
Yeah.
What do you think, Malena?
Yeah. I'll just jump in quickly and then pass the baton to somebody who is training people and seeing clients now. I did find, and I've also found this with cases that weren't separation anxiety, but there was some kind of problem, is that there are places in a house that feel safer or less overstimulating. So I had a lot of cases, for example, where I don't think the dogs had separation anxiety, but they went crazy. They went crazy at the window, for example. They bit the curtains. They pulled pulled the shades down because they were on a street and there were dogs walking past them all the time and they were overstimulated barking at the dogs. And if you put them in a place that didn't have those same windows, they just quieted down. They weren't overstimulated all the time. And I can imagine, I actually remember a few cases where I had clients who had house on a really busy street, for example, and the dogs appeared to be much calmer if they were in like the internal room. So they couldn't go in the living room, but they could be, it was just gated. So they could be in the kitchen, the bedroom, and there just weren't windows exposed to everything. And they seemed calmer in that circumstance, possibly less anxious, but definitely calmer. So I think in some circumstances, there are cases where there are areas of the house, just to address that aspect of it, that might feel more comfortable and less anxiety producing for dogs. But again, that's just totally a case by case basis. So passing the baton.
Well, I mean, I really appreciate your answer, and I absolutely agree. That's why Guinness went to the pub in that very early first case of mine, because we didn't want him right at the window where he was on a busy street in San Francisco. We also have to remember that sometimes the environment is going to dictate our choices. For instance, if you live in an apartment building where people are coming and going and making noises in the hallway, etc., you might not have much control over that. And I think, trying to incorporate sound masking and gates that keep the dog away from maybe where the main sources of noises are, etc., can be really helpful. But at the end of the day, we need to carefully assess the dog's behavior to determine what environment, what setup or lack of setup, if it's free in the house, is going to best keep the dog not only mentally safe, but also physically safe, right? What environment is best for that dog during alone time? And oftentimes we, assess 2 or 3 different scenarios, and one of those 2 or 3, the dog is acting significantly more calm and adjusted nicely in that environment. I want to just mention too that you talked about the dog being safe and in other aspects of the dog's life. One of the things, and I just recently, well, I guess not so recently, it's been a couple of years, but took Christina Spalding's Unlocking Resilience course. And one of the things, Dr. Spalding is just
the best.
The best.
Speaking of, I just happened to.
There you go. Look at you.
I'm writing a blog right now related actually to ADHD in dogs. I had a great conversation with her about that anyway, but this is a fabulous book.
Wonderful, wonderful. That you can get on otherwise.
Yeah, and I have both of these books right next to each other on my bookshelf. I knew right where they were. I knew right where to grab from. I love that they're next to each other.
That's hilarious. Well, what I wanted to say was one of the things that I learned, I knew this sort of intrinsically before, but Dr. Spalding gave me sort of language and understanding about it. When a dog is experiencing stress, when an animal, not just dogs, is experiencing stress in one aspect of their life, it certainly can affect other aspects of their life. Stress can become cumulative. The dog gets his nails trimmed at the vet in the morning, and on the way home from the vet, there's a reactive dog that gets all up in his face, and then he gets home and he has to be left alone for a little while. I mean, these are stressors that are stacking up. One thing that I find so exciting to see is that as dogs start to feel safe during alone time, it commonly translates into other positive behaviors in different scenarios, right? And vice versa, right? If you've got a dog who is learning that dogs on the street are not something to be scared of, we've lowered that overall stress, which can help with the stress and other aspects of that dog's life. And safety, to me, is what we are always striving for when we are teaching alone time or any other type of behavior. Safety, I was asked one time, well, what's in it for the dog when you're doing separation anxiety work? And my answer is safety. It is a huge motivator to want to experience a safe environment. And so I love that was brought up in that quote.
Love all of that insight. I have one last myth that I think you're going to like debunking, Malena. Separation anxiety is not treatable. Anyone who's listening, who's working with a client or has a dog at home with separation anxiety, it can feel really hopeless. And we just want you to know that there is a community out there, that it is treatable, that there are resources available. So if you are working with a client or if you have a dog like that, just know you are not alone. Like I said, Malena has created a wonderful network, a wonderful support network. There's so many resources available now. So I'm so glad for everyone who joined us today, who asked questions, who showed up, who left comments, and was able to be here today. We had so many people who were leaving comments. I really like this comment from Ben. I never thought about how my handling separation anxiety conversations affect the client, the human. This conversation has been super insightful. I'm going to change my approach now, be more gentle and inquisitive. Really love hearing that growth and that opportunity there. We have another comment from Dear Dog Fanatic. I'm in the process of creating a freebie for my clients that will hopefully help them with general behavior data collection. I appreciate how helpful this could be for separation anxiety clients as well. So a lot of really great ideas that we got to discuss today. And again, I'm so grateful to have you all joining us live. I also want to close with this quote from a book that I did an interview a couple of weeks ago with Kate Nato, who wrote Small Dog Savvy. In her book, she says, do not expect a greater behavior change from your dog than you would expect from a human who is undergoing therapy. Having that empathy, having that compassion for our clients and our dogs as well is so incredibly important. Before I sign off, I also want to remind everybody that we are doing an online book club. It is free to join. You don't even have to read the book. You can just show up. It's not on Facebook like this. It'll actually be a private Zoom call. We don't record that. It is just something where if you're a dog nerd and you like to read and you want some accountability for reading and you want to jump in and talk about dog behavior for 30 or 40 minutes, we're doing that at the end of each month. So all of the information for all of these events is on our social media, but I have been picking very small books. This book, Visiting the Dog Park, is currently $1 at dogwise.com. So go get yourself a copy. It's on Kindle Unlimited. It's on Audible. We try and make it really easy. And it looks like Kirsten just finished the book this weekend, excited for this month's book club. Short, but super insightful. And I picked this book because dog parks are a very controversial topic. So I wanted to have something to be able to chat about. And then again, everyone who's joined us to the end or who is watching the replay, I want to be sure to share with you all our code to be able to get 20% off of Malena's book or Trisha's book. You can get the ebook, you can get the physical book. The code is going to be there on the screen for you, but I will leave that up for everyone in just a couple of minutes. But before we sign off, I want to say thank you both so much for your time, for your valuable insight. Thank you. Thank you. We've got comments, people leaving saying, thank you so much for this conversation, especially as a CSAT. This is great fun. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time.